All right. Hello and welcome. Today, we are going to be talking about the vibes process. I'm really excited to share it with you, whether you're listening live or you are listening to the replay. This is a process that I feel like is going to streamline a lot of things for you if you've been a part of this work for a little while or you're totally new to it. The process that we're going to talk about today is really powerful to create big shifts whenever you're wanting to create change in your life. Um, with these Thursday calls, just if you're new and you're wondering how all this works, we kind of go back and forth between teaching and coaching. So maybe one week we'll do more teaching, one week we'll do more coaching. The coaching calls are not recorded just to give you more of a sense of safety to be able to share whatever you want to share, knowing that it's not going to be recorded. And the beautiful thing about the coaching sessions is that when you are processing something and someone else is there listening to you process, they might be going through some of the same things. So we're all really supporting and helping each other. So those coaching times are wonderful. And we're going to use this vibes process that I'm going to share with you today for next week. We're going to coach you through the whole process. So today is more of the teaching time. Next week is more of the coaching time. I do want to say, though, with this process, what really helps is to have a journal nearby or even to just like jot notes on your phone to start to wrap your mind around the process and start be kind of brewing on what is it that is priority for me to work on? What area is the triage, that maybe my mind or my body or my emotions are giving me that I want to focus in on first? And to start to think through the process that I'm going to be teaching you today. And I'm going to give you a few tools at the end in case you want to go ahead and dive in. But we'll be going through that whole process next week, and I hope you'll be able to be there and get it live. If not, you can always listen to the recording. But we're going to be using this process a lot because it's very streamlined. And if you've been in this work for a while, you'll recognize a lot of the concepts. So some of this stuff is not new. It's more so kind of encapsulated in a way that I think is going to be really powerful for you. And this is all about the process of creating change. And so, for most of us, when we think about creating change, we're either maybe white knuckling it or in stress and striving or feeling defeated a lot of the time. Like, I want to create this change in this area of my life, whether it's in an area of wellness or in relationships or in just kind of my emotional outlook on life, or even finances. I want to create change in some area of my life. However, I feel blocked or I feel stuck or I feel, like I said, defeated. And so hopefully this process really helps you understand the full bodied picture because there is a spiritual and a practical art to creating change. And for many of us, we're really either good at one side, not the other. And putting those two together is really important. So, like, we might be really good at doing like the inner work, but we're not good at actually strategizing in our life and implementing well in our life and having that structure, that discipline. Or we're really good at like the to-do list, the structure, the discipline, but we're not doing this very important spiritual, emotional, energetic work. And so this vibes process really puts everything together. We are getting that spiritual and that practical art of creating change. So you could return to this particular recording, and we're going to be using this process a lot, but you could return to this particular recording if you want to just wrap your mind continually around like, how does this process work? And at the end, if you have questions, you can type in the chat box, you can come off mute. I want to make sure that you get what you need today to really understand it, to write some things down, to be brewing on it. And then next week, we'll dive into the actual coaching process. So, the way I want to begin this is just to mention a couple of scriptures that I think highlight and bring to the forefront some of the struggle that we as human beings have when we're wanting to create change in our life. And so the scripture that comes to mind all the time is in Romans 7, where Paul is talking about, what I want to do, even as much as I want to do it, I'm not able to do it. Like it's this war, this perennial war of the flesh versus the spirit, however you want to say it, of the mind, the deeper mind versus the conscious mind. It's the maybe war between who we know ourselves to be versus what we're experiencing in our life. And he goes on to say, thank God the victory is available to us in Jesus. And I just want to say that victory has already happened. Like we are living in this connection to the spirit where we can take that life of God and the work that Jesus did, and we can embody it in a whole new way. But what is typically blocking us, and you could use lots of words for this, different people will use different terminology, put what in here, whatever fits. But what's blocking us is this mind that is not fully on board with our core, our spirit, our true identity, our true self. And you could call it the ego, you could call it the flesh, whatever terminology you want to use. But the idea here is that we have this block, we have this thing that is perpetually in our face of like, I want to do this, but I can't do it. Why is that? Well, the victory is available to us, and we are having to help this part of ourselves that's not really on board with the truth get on board with the truth and get on board with the new identity and the potential and the freedom and the lightness that is available to us at all times. It's already in us, it's already at our core. The wholeness is available to us. And so, the scripture, I believe it's Romans 12 that says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Many of us think in terms of our conscious mind, that iceberg above the surface, that 5% that maybe knows the truth or has had a lot of teaching and training and maybe biblical knowledge or has done a lot of work with the mind. It's really important that we have that knowledge. But if we're missing out on the transformation of the mind that is the iceberg underneath the surface, the subconscious mind, which, as you know, is in charge of the emotions and the memories and the beliefs, and it holds these old false identities about who we are based on our past pain and programming. So you can imagine if we help and continue to help this part of our being get on board, then we're going to find that creating change becomes so natural, because we're stepping more and more and more fully into the truth of who we are, into the identity that is our true self. And we'll find that it becomes, rather than a war, it's a much more peaceful experience on the inside. And there's just a greater amount of connection. So this is the vantage point that I'm coming from, because I want to make sure we pull back and see the forest for the trees, and we understand when it comes to creating change, this is what's going on. This is not a willpower problem for you. This is not something wrong with you. You're not faulty at your core. You're not broken and need to be fixed. We are simply trying to help this part of the mind that has been deceived or has been hurt or is in pain. We're trying to help it get on board with the truth. And so that is what creating change looks like on this big picture level. And we also need really practical tools in order to transform the mind continually, conscious and subconscious, to help it move forward. So the great thing is with this process, you can use it really for anything. And so today, maybe what I want you to do is take a moment to just tune into one, maybe think of like the top three things that you are wanting to create change in your life right now. And again, this could be something within your wellness picture. If you're dealing with like, man, I really want to eat right, or I really want to, like, I have this vision for how, like, the food that I want to eat and how I want to eat it. And there's just that basic, like, I just want to nourish my body well. And here's kind of the vision that I have. Or I'm really struggling in this area of relationships, and I'm feeling this like dissonance in relationships, and I want to work on my own part of that, who I want to be in this particular situation. Or I feel like, man, I'm struggling like financially, and the finances are a big problem here. And so I want to work through some of those blockages on a financial level. So it could really be anywhere. Of course, we talk a lot about, wellness, emotional wellness, physical wellness. But notice of those kind of top things that you're brewing on, notice what is in kind of in this moment, something that you feel like you could emotionally connect to, because it's kind of important to be able to emotionally connect to this as we're working through the process, because we'll be noticing the emotional energy of it, and be playing around with that, and helping you shift your energy. So choose one thing. And this is another important deal, is that there's maybe a lot of things in our life that we want to change, right? There's a lot of shifts that we want to make. But I encourage you to go ahead and set your sights on one thing you want to focus on right now, and process that, and work on that for a little bit until you feel like there's a sense in you of, okay, I've kind of gotten where I want to be on that. I can lay that aside, even if it's not fully shifted. I'm going to lay that aside, and then I'm going to work on maybe the next thing. But we want to work on one thing at a time, because when we get scattered, it creates chaos in the brain, which creates chaos in the body, which creates self-sabotage. So one thing at a time. Be patient with yourself. Know that when you take the time to just work on one thing, especially with this process, at a time, you're going to see better results, because we're not getting into that chaos and self-sabotage pattern. All right. So, um, you probably want to journal. I think I mentioned that already. Yes. Okay. So I'm going to say a few more things about the subconscious mind. So what we're working with here, of course, is that mind that needs to get on board with the truth. And what I want you to remember is that your subconscious mind does not speak English. Remember that it speaks in the language of emotions, essentially energy in motion is what emotions are. It speaks in the language of pictures, visuals, or even senses in your mind. And it speaks in the language of sensations. And so if we can learn to speak its language rather than trying to speak our own language to it, which it's not that it doesn't respond to English, it is really more that it's responding to the energy of what you're saying and what you mean when you're saying certain words to it. So if you say to your body, I love you, the energy of that is the love, right? And that's what it's responding to. So, of course, we know words have power, but it's the energy of the words that have power. So, we want to make sure that we're learning to speak the language of the subconscious mind, so that we can make these shifts, and we're not just like banging our head against the wall, being like, man, I've been trying to change things by thinking better thoughts, or having a less negative mindset, or telling myself, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then I don't end up doing it. And I feel frustrated with myself, and I feel defeated. Okay. So subconscious mind doesn't speak English. We got to learn to speak its language, which is emotions, energy, and just visuals, vision, pictures, sensation. That's its language. And remember, your subconscious mind informs your autonomic nervous system, the millions of functions that are happening at all times inside your system. So it is being informed by your energy. It is being informed by your thought patterns, by your energetic patterns. So when we're creating change, we're shifting the patterns. that are not who you are into the patterns of the truth of who you are, which again has always been there and always will be. We're just unlocking it, right? So the light can shine out. Okay. So let's just go through like what is the vibes process. I'm going to go through the basic acronym. So vibes is an acronym and it stands for vision. So vision, intention, this is our target. So we're focusing on that vision, intention, that target. The I stands for identity. So we want to get clear on what's the identity, the way, the lens with which I'm seeing myself. What is that way I'm seeing myself? And is that in alignment with the vision that I have? What is there an old identity or a false identity I'm living in versus what is the true identity that I want to step into? And of course, I really encourage you to ask God into this process. Let the Spirit guide you in this process because sometimes there are things that we have no idea, like old patterns that feel really familiar to us, where we have no idea that we're living in this old identity and that that's actually not the truth of who we are. But because we believe that it's the truth, it might as well be true because of the way that our experience is going to be. So identity is the second one. I'm going through this quickly and then we'll go into it deeper. B stands for blockage. Okay, so this is the glass wall or glass ceiling that we bump into when we're trying to create change. And the blockage is the false identity, the old beliefs. You could also think of the B in there as beliefs, these false beliefs that we absorb. And remember, it's not your fault. It's things that you absorbed probably before you were even able to filter out, the untruths. And the blockages are energetic. They're emotional, especially if you're really um, you're someone who tends to absorb other people's emotions without knowing it. You're empathic. You are very sensitive emotionally, and I find a lot of people in this work who are drawn to this work are really compassionate human beings who love deeply, who have really big hearts. And there's also the dark side of that is the tendency to absorb other people's stuff or other people's emotions without even knowing it. But the light side of that part of their personality is the beautiful, like big-heartedness, the compassion, the love, the desire for everyone to be healed and whole and the world to be good. So we have to understand that there's some energetic blockages that have been absorbed. They're not even our own. Maybe they've even been inherited. That's very common that we are blocked by something that is a miasm, which is the energy of a suppressed disease or a suppressed belief. And that gets passed in through utero. So it's something that you kind of are born with having to kind of process through in your life. But thankfully, all of it can be processed, and there's lots of tools. So the B stands for blockage. The E stands for emotion/energy. So remember, emotions, energy in motion. So when it comes down to it, we're made up of light and energy. So if you get down to that smallest particle, we're actually like these beings of light, but it's concentrated into physical form. This is why we can live in a physical world, we live in a material world, but when it comes down to it, everything is made up of energy, and it's made up of either high vibrating energies or lower vibrating energies. And the lower vibrating energies are like there is in the physical world this density that's an energy that's lower vibrating, but it within our being we can be very high vibrating beings. We can be filled with that gratitude and that love and that joy. But we have to sometimes shift our energy from this lower vibration, seeing the world purely as materialists and just looking at everything practically and materially, or shifting our awareness to, moving from the lower energies such as fear, shame, or guilt, resentment, into the higher energies that are true to our core, which is love, joy, peace, gratitude, compassion, all those wonderful things. Okay, so that is the E, emotion, energy, shifting our emotion from the old energies into the new. And then the S stands for strategy. Okay. So this is the part where, there's that spiritual and practical art of creating change. The strategy is this last piece to really put what you are learning into practice, integrating what you have received, maybe doing something very practical that is like, man, I'm gonna sign up for this class that's gonna help me stay really focused on my goals. I'm going to I'm gonna create this habit or this pattern. I'm gonna do it every day. This is where the healthy sort of discipline and willpower comes in, because we do need to have a strategy in our lives. And this is where our conscious mind can really help us. We want to have that so that we're moving forward in a way that is that is practical, it is grounded. We're not just doing the spiritual work, we're also doing the practical work. Now, at the very end, S also stands for surrender. Okay, so I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of this. But that's our process, vibes process, vision, identity, blockage, emotion/energy, and strategy, surrender. Okay, so hopefully all this makes sense so far. All right, so we're going to go through each one by one, and hopefully at this point you have you've kind of thought about what the one thing is that you want to work on, and I want you to just, if you have a moment, to just like jot down notes about things that you're observing about this. And I encourage you to have like a beginner's mind around this, like just kind of a curiosity, because I think it can be easy to approach this kind of inner work with like, I already know what's down there, or I already know like what this is. This is just a me problem, or this is just a this. If we will just stay in this really like open-hearted state as we're going through the process, it creates a space for aha moments or insights that we might not have even recognized were there, to just pop to the surface. So as you're going through this, just take deep breaths, relax your body, just notice like what comes up as I'm processing through these different facets of this issue that I'm wanting to shift and create this change in. Okay. All right. And you know that every issue that pops up in our lives, is a doorway to deeper healing. It's a doorway to actually mirror to us or shed light on what might be holding us back. And so I think we would never do some of this work if we didn't bump into these problems or these issues in our lives, the relationships we have in our lives, or the physical challenges that we're bumping into that seem so frustrating, that we could maybe tend to berate ourselves that we actually have those issues. But if you can look at them through the lens of, man, what if this is here? To really point me in the direction of something that is new to me, and something I need to draw into my life, maybe a new modality or a new awareness. Or this is bringing up a past pain that I've been storing in my body that has been hurting me, or an old way of seeing myself that is not helping me live the fullest, thriving life that God has for me. So that is the paradigm shift. If we can look at these issues as gifts to ourselves, they're simply here to help us become more truly who we are. So that's the paradigm shift we really want to have. Okay, so we're going to bring some good vibes to our challenges here. So if you have your journal, taking deep breaths, again, we won't be doing the processing part of this. We'll do that next time, but we will be doing just the note taking and kind of wrapping our minds around it. Okay. So notice your target. We're going to start with that one thing, that target. And what I want you to tune into is notice what your vision would be for what you want instead of this challenge. So the vision is like, I'll just use one thing to kind of, we'll use this one thing as uh, an example, and I'll use the same thing throughout so you can kind of get a feel for this, but plug in your own personal thing you're working on. Okay. So, for some people, just being able to eat the healthy food that they know is really good for them and to be able to eat it, calmly, like in that state of peace and to chew thoroughly, just that basic, like, I'm gonna eat the food that I know is really healthy. I'm not gonna stress eat or overeat or eat in a rush. I'm just gonna do that one thing. That it's got the problem and the vision in there. Okay, so the problem is maybe I'm overeating or I'm stress eating or I'm eating what I know isn't really healthy for me. And I just really want to be able to have this like peaceful relationship with food. Okay, so your vision that you want to cast is this vision of you having that peaceful relationship, right? The vision is just like essentially the intention. This is my target. This is what I want to do. Okay. And so I want you to just tune into that, whatever that thing is for you. And you want to take a moment as you're processing this vision to notice like what is it that I really want for this vision? Like what is it that would really be like a light up? What do I feel really drawn to? Um, Not just something that I think I should do, but what is that picture or that sense, in my mind or and it might not be a full-fledged vision. Some people see things in pictures and some people they just get kind of a sense of it, or an impression. But we want to work this muscle of like visioning and intentioning, like, oh yeah, that thing. Okay. So maybe write that down. Notice what kind of comes up. And if you don't know what your vision is, I think it's important to just ask God to guide you. Like, God, just show me, like, what is your vision that is in me? And show me what that could look like. Because we're co-creators with God in our life. We're not the victim, but we're not in my opinion, we're not creating everything, but we are co-creators, right? We are in this relationship that is so beautiful because God is by nature creative, and we are by nature creative because we're made in the image of God. So we're creating all the time. We're either creating from our past and pain and issues and challenges and old identity, or we're creating from the truth of who we are. So sometimes just casting that vision from like this place of your heart and asking, what is it that is the vision here? And just sitting with that for a little bit. And it doesn't have to be anything complex. It can just be really simple, like the example I gave. Like, I just want to be able to eat the foods that I know are really supportive for me. I want to be able to relax when I'm eating them, not have fear, not be stressed, not be overeating, just have this healthy, peaceful relationship with food. That could be just a straightforward one that we do. Okay, so that's vision. You could brew on that. You could come back to this, write notes on it. Let's go to identity. All right. So remember, identity, this is the lens with which you see yourself. So this has to do with the who you are, who you believe yourself to be. And so many times we're walking around with an identity around a certain area of our life, that is it feels familiar and it feels normal, but it's not actually the full truth. It might be partially true. Like you might have an identity of like, yeah, I know I'm worthy, I know that I'm valuable. Um, in certain ways. But in these ways over here, I really don't, you know? So we can be very split and divided, and that's okay. Just notice that, observe without judgment. Okay. And so what you want to notice is in this particular area. Okay, so in the area of the target that I'm working on, the vision I'm working on, what is the way that I'm seeing myself? Okay, so when it comes to food, and do I see myself as a stress eater or an overeater or someone who is kind of overly obsessed with food or someone who can't seem to really get it together? Is that the identity that I'm holding? Even something as much as, you know, the labels that we put on ourselves, like, oh, I have an eating disorder. I'm just that person. That's who I am. We can get pretty locked into this is just how it's going to be forever. And I always tell people, like, do not let a label lock you in, right? Labels are for jars, not people. You are so much more expansive. You have so much more potential. You're so much more than that. All right, so we want to notice what is the old identity that's sort of matching with my struggle. Like I'm this and this and this, whatever. And then we want to flip it around to really observe, like, what would the identity look like of someone who is aligned with this vision that I have, right? So we got the struggle, we got the vision, we got the old identity, we have the new identity, okay? So we want to start to flesh this out. Like, what would it look like to be the person who just naturally has the identity of someone who easily like takes care of their body, easily eats, you know, eats when they're hungry, stops when they're full, gives themselves the correct nutrition or the good nutrition that they know is right for themselves. I'm a big fan of like, there's no one size fits all diet. You have to tune in to what's right for you, being intuitive with your body, someone who just has a really healthy like relationship with food. They're not starving themselves, they're not overeating, it's neutral, it's just happy. What is that? What is that identity of that person? So you might just notice, like, have I created this identity around this struggle that I'm having that I can shift, that I can create something new in? All right. So this is where we get to the blockage part because this is usually where the stuff is stored, right? This is usually where, when I think about either stepping into this new identity or letting go of the old way of operating, this is where the emotion arises, right? This is where the dross comes to the surface. What I mean by that is, you know, when gold is being refined, all the impurities called the dross rises to the surface to be skimmed off. Okay. So this is what happens when we start to let go of the old identity and tune into the new one. And we kind of start to see ourselves like, ooh, what if I was that person? Then sometimes the stuff comes up, like, ooh, the fear comes up. Like, ooh, what if I don't get enough like food? What if what if people are judging me if I lose weight or if I feel good in my body or if I'm not eating what so and so told me to eat? Um, this is where we start to notice where those blocks are, what we're running up against. Okay. So the process that we're going to use, and blockage is where we do the bulk of our tapping work. Um, we're going to use the EFT tapping process. And by now I'm sure you know how to do that, but I'm going to walk you through that blockage that arises. Now, sometimes the blockage is the fear of success. Like, oh, if I'm actually that person, I'm actually afraid of what it will look like to be successful. And sometimes the blockage is a fear of like, it's a sense of lack, it's a fear of failure, it's an anger that is rising up. It is a memory from the past that has not been processed. But the good news is your subconscious mind knows exactly what we need to work on. And so what I do is I take you through the process. It's similar to if you've ever done the How to Transform Your Past Pain and Programming process. that is very, we're using some of those concepts here as we're digging down and I say digging down, we're actually just allowing the subconscious mind to bring to the surface whatever emotional energy is stuck inside the body. If there's a memory that needs to be processed, if there's a fear of success, if there is, just frustration or anger, whatever comes up, we just allow it to come up, right? And so this goes right into the E part of the vibes process is we want to allow that emotional energy that has been stored in the body, because the body stores emotions, stores energies, stores beliefs, all that. We want to allow this stuff to come to the surface, and we want to let it process because it hasn't been able to process. Clear, if you're feeling it, it means it's stuck somewhere inside your body and there's either a belief or an identity attached to it, or it's just an energy that needs to clear out, right? So the tapping process that we're going to utilize allows that energy to rise to the surface. It allows if there's a memory we need to process, if there is, an event, or if there is an identity or a belief, brings it to the surface so that we can use this tapping process to help dial it down. And then we also will ask God for the truth in that moment. So, of course, God knows all the truth and knows how to communicate with you about the truth. And sometimes we just really need to know, like, what's actually true for me? Like, how do you see me? What's true about this situation? What is the lens with which I need to see through rather than my old lens? Okay. So that that process of tapping, we'll do that next time. We'll allow it to come to the surface. We'll clear it through. We'll ask God about it. And we'll notice how the nervous system is feeling because what we want to do is clear in the energies out that are creating that blockage. And then we want to embody the new energy, the new emotion. Okay. So this is where we want to help shift from the old energy that would arise when you would think about this vision or this new identity that you want to step into. Now we want to fill it with the truth and that energy that is consistent with the truth, which is always going to be a core energy, right? A core energy of, or core emotion of gratitude or love or peace or joy or excitement or freedom or lightness. It's always going to feel like that. And at first, it might feel a little bit neutral, like, okay, I don't feel bad, but I don't quite yet feel good. And that the way that we start to feel good is A, by getting the truth from God about this, and B, being able to tune into the heart center because the heart is that doorway to the core emotions. Tune into the heart center and really allow the feelings of gratitude for the truth of who you are. And so we'll tune into that vision, we'll tune into that identity, see yourself as that person and then elevate the emotional energy to match that. Because the science shows in order to create change, you need a clear intention and an elevated emotion. You need a clear visual, a vision, a target, a direction, and then you need to elevate that emotion to match it. Because what we often have is a mismatch between what we want and the energy and the identity that we're living in. So it's like, I really want to be an abundant person, but I'm living in fear and lack. So there's a dissonance between what I want and what I feel. So we have to make sure that the vision and the identity and the emotion are all at the same place. We're being that person and then we can move right into our strategy. Okay. So then we talk about the strategy. As I, move into being this person and having these emotions, what does this person do? Who are they in their life? How do they handle conflict? How do they handle, food? What's the relationship with food? What is that person doing? What is that new true identity doing and being? And we start to create the habits and patterns and the strategies based on that true identity. And it's really cool to see what naturally happens. And this is the surrender part of it, because when you are doing the work and you're stepping into that vision and that identity and that emotion, and then you are setting in place the strategies and you are mentally rehearsing, who is that person? What do they do? What do I do as that person? What is intrinsic to me if I'm operating in this elevated energy and this new identity? Um, it's really fun to see what happens because stuff just starts to show up. Like I have noticed over time as I've been doing this work, like, wow, like I worked on that like a few weeks ago, and then suddenly, like, bam, something pops into place that just like, oh, there it is, things start to come to you naturally because remember, you are an electromagnetic being. So you're magnetizing to you according to what you're feeling and thinking and believing. And so instead of things mirroring back to you based on this old identity and this old belief, now things are coming to you based on this new true identity and belief. Okay. So it's fun to surrender and not like be in like the managing, controlling space, because then you start to see things are just working out exactly the way they need to. And you really can surrender to God and trust that God is bringing into your life exactly the things that need to happen to support you, and to validate and affirm the good work that you've done. Okay, so I hope that just explaining this process is supportive to you as we are going to be diving more deeply into doing the actual process. I didn't want to try to do both today because it makes it kind of long. So um, hopefully you can be here next week, every week at 11 o'clock, or every Thursday at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to be doing either teaching, coaching, or a course that I'll be going through. But we're going to work on this vibes process quite a bit so that if you run into snags, I can help you through them. And we won't be recording next week because I want you to be able to ask the questions. I'll walk you through the process, and hopefully you're just going to start to notice these shifts in your life that get very exciting. Okay, so what you can do between now and then is if you've gone through and you've journaled the gone through the different processes, you can do some of the tappings that are in the app. So under courses, you go to meditations, and then there's the list of tappings. If you're bumping into some blockages and you want to go ahead and start to work on them, use the processing emotions tapping meditation, because it will help you go through some of the emotions that are coming up kind of sequentially, like one by one. Okay. If you are not feeling like there's a lot of emotions, you're just wanting to rehearse this identity, and this emotion, then do the creating change tapping meditation, because that one helps you tune into your heart, see the picture in your mind, feel the emotion, and kind of go back and forth until you can do both at once. So it has some of the elements of the vibes process. Or you can just do like a level one tapping, which, as we've talked about before, is just tap and breathe anytime you notice that you're starting to feel like stressed, or like when I think about doing this, I start to feel fear. Just keep the body calm down. We just at least want to neutralize those things, as they're popping up. So that's your call to action this week. If you can work on go through this process and journal if you haven't already, and then maybe do some of those tapping meditations, and then we'll dive into the deeper process. And it's going to be fun. All right, you guys. If there's any questions, I am happy to answer them. And you can type them in the chat box. You can come off mute, or if you want to save those for next time, we can do that too. Just want to make sure y'all get what you need. Okay. All right, I think we're good. We will wrap it up today. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully you'll be just experiencing some good vibes in place of your challenges. And hopefully you have a beautiful day. And until next time. All right, bye for now.